Hey, everybody. Really interesting chat today at the intersection of compliance and digital communications with Smarsh. Jeff, how are you?
Good, thanks, Evan. Nice to be here.
Well, thanks for coming. Really timely and interesting topic. Before that, maybe introduce Smarsh for those who aren't familiar with your leadership in the space and a little bit about your journey at Smarsh.
Yeah, so Smarsh is the leading supplier of communications intelligence software. If you've ever interacted with a bank or an investment advisor and heard on the phone, this call may be recorded for quality or compliance purposes, or seen that in the tagline at the bottom of an email, that's most likely going to be sent, captured by Smarsh and sent to our archive to be stored for regulatory purposes. But now, with the advent of large language models, there's really so much more that we can do with that data, which is really exciting.
It is, and you make it sound so simple, but there's so much interesting tech and innovation happening behind the scenes, as you indicate. So maybe walk through your sort of portfolio and the world of communications compliance. You've been at this for a while. How do your features and products fit sort of, I guess there's capture, there's archiving, there's supervision, there's all kinds of things that you can do with that data that you capture.
Yeah, so you know, if you look at it just from a workflow perspective, right, these large financial institutions, actually large and small, have a regulatory need requirement from the SEC and FINRA to capture, store, and surveil or supervise communications between employees of the bank and customers in order to ensure that they're all following the rules and instill trust in the financial institutions in our country. And so to do that, you number one have to capture the communications, which in the old days was pretty simple. It was all email. But as everyone has experienced in the past 4 or 5 years at least, it's really exploded. Whereas, we may communicate on email, maybe send a text, chat on WhatsApp, meet up on a Teams or a Zoom call. So the world of electronic communications has really exploded since the pandemic and the rise of hybrid work. So we have to capture over 100 different channels for our customers, different communications channels. And then that data needs to be stored in a regulatory grade archive. So what that means is that the archive can be written to only one time, and then you can read from it many times. So once the data is written in there, it needs to be immutable. It cannot be changed. And that's to, again, ensure the integrity of it and the integrity of the system. And then the banks need to surveil that data. So they need to check it, and auditors will go and confirm that. And that, again, was relatively easy when it was just email and there was a low level of communications because everybody was working in person. But now the average trader sends between 200 and 400 messages a day. So even for a modestly sized bank of 10,000 people, they have to review 2 million or more communications a day, which is quite a big problem to solve. So that's where AI comes in. And we've been using AI for 10 years before it was cool to surveil that and help provide more efficiency in sorting through that giant pile of communications and really finding any alerts, finding the needle in the haystack. And then lastly, the other big interested party in this data is legal. So for any sort of lawsuits that may come up, they need to provide communications that may have happened between parties as part of legal discovery. And so a lot of that is sourced from the archive. So they'll go and need to search for communications in a certain time period between certain individuals, and then extract that and provide it to their legal teams as part of the legal discovery process. So those are really the four big features that we have: capturing communications, archiving them, surveilling them, and e-discovery.
Amazing. So you mentioned AI integration with compliance. You said you've been at it for 10 years, which, well ahead of all the news and the headlines and LLMs and all that good stuff. But you do have a number of new capabilities that are relatively recent: AI assistant, intelligent agent. I'm seeing here on your website. Talk about your AI driven tools and what their impact might be for efficiency, risk management, other areas.
Yeah, it's really been a fascinating journey, and it's only accelerating, which is really exciting. So in the early days, like 10 years ago, it was really just natural language processing and
Mhm.
really looking at rules-based algorithms. So looking for single words, and that's something. it's really hard to discern the meaning behind words when you're only looking at one. And so that evolved quickly into customized machine learning models that our team built. We're very fortunate to have very experienced and you know, I don't know, creditable team building our ML models. And so they built those out to look at phrases, which is much better than words and provides a lot more resolution and more alerts and fewer false positives. But really, a big breakthrough has been in the past 2 years with the advent of large language models that now bring us into a world where the machine can reason and look at the full
Mm.
context of a message. And so, whereas in the old days, maybe it was like searching for a word like secret to say, somebody hiding something. And then with machine learning models, it would look for a phrase like, let's keep this between us or keep this secret. But now with context in large language models, it can look at the whole message and say, well, this is really just about a surprise party. Like, Evan's surprise party is on Friday. Let's keep this secret between us. So that's not something that's indicating any malicious behavior. That would be a false positive and would just be ignored. So with the new machine learning or the new LLM models that we have, and specifically here I'm talking about intelligent agent, that's creating a huge reduction in the amount of workload that these banks have to do to surveil all these messages. Because again, looking at 2 million or more messages a day manually with a human is a big expense. And so by enabling that to be done by machines, really can we've seen reduce the workload by about 70%, which is a huge savings. And then, that level of AI is not appropriate for all size organizations. It works for banks that are large, 10,000, 100,000 people, it's a no-brainer. But if it's a small organization with just, 100 people to 1,000 people, then they don't need anything that high powered. And so what we did was we took that down and put that as AI assistant, which is an on-demand capability where an individual reviewing an email can click on the assistant and it can do it on demand and provide some highlighting where they might see some problematic language, but the human's going to make the decision in the end. And so that's a much more cost effective way for smaller organizations to realize the benefits of AI at a price point that they can afford.
Fantastic. Really interesting stuff. You mentioned communications channels. You say you have over 100 communications channels supported. I don't even know that there were that many, but I guess they get into pretty obscure channels. Um, how do you capture and manage such a diverse range of interfaces and APIs and platforms? That must be quite a challenge. Of course, new ones are always popping up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we do have a large team of product management and engineering staff that stay on top of this. We're fortunate to have been in the space as a leader for a long time. And so we do have relationships, deep relationships with some of the leaders like
Mm.
Microsoft, where when they have a new feature coming out, then they will often approach us and work with our team in order to ensure that we can compliantly capture it on day one so that it can be adopted by financial institutions. A good example was OpenAI when they released their Copilot for Enterprise in April. They chose 8 different companies that they would work with ahead of time to ensure compliant capture of Copilot for Enterprise, and we were one of them, which we felt very privileged to be.
Fantastic. So I actually go way back to 35 plus years in telephony, telecom, and
Oh yeah.
we thought voice and telephony was done and dusted, pretty boring, but there's actually a lot of exciting stuff happening on the voice side of the business. You recently acquired Call Cabinet to enhance your voice capabilities for contact center and other use cases, voice recording. Talk about that acquisition and what you hope to get out of it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that acquisition, and they go way back too. The CEO of Call Cabinet was telling me the other day that when he started, everything was on tape, and so that was actually how they got their name. Was they'd be in the Cow Cabinet, like pulling tapes and switching them over for recording. So there's tremendous potential in that acquisition. I mean, at first glance, it's going to help fill out our portfolio, especially for surveillance. So a lot of folks are interested now in surveilling more of the voice, and so taking those call recordings, transcribing them, then running them through AI in order to again alert on any potential misbehaviors is paramount for our customers. But then beyond that, really, Call Cabinet is helping to serve a whole nother set of regulations around data privacy. And so that opens up a new world for us too, and the ability to go work with folks in the call center together with the folks in compliance to not only provide communications compliance for books and records, but also for data privacy as well.
Fascinating. So you have a lot going on. Give us a peek into the future, whether it's your roadmap or new innovations that might be on the radar. What are you excited about for, the rest of this year and beyond?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about going beyond compliance and really using these large language models to provide more insights to and
Mm,
more business value to the organization. So even expanding to insider threat and other risk management areas, but going beyond that to revenue management as well. And so looking at use
mm.
cases around all these communications with customers, what is it that they really like about the services that our customers are able to provide? What separates the best salespeople from the rest, and how can we emulate more of their behaviors and the way that they communicate, either through training or through hiring practices, in order to reinforce and have a stronger sales team in the future. So I
Yeah,
think that's what's
amazing
really exciting, and then
opportunity.
even that, yeah, and then that expands the opportunity beyond highly regulated industries as well, because that's a problem that's relevant to organizations in all industries and all sizes.
Yeah, it was amazing to me that all sales calls aren't monitored and recorded and analyzed, not just to, be a big brother on your sales with your sales reps, but to get actionable insights and feedback on sales opportunities and understand what customers are asking for. So much opportunity on the table that's just sort of left on the cutting board. So,
Yeah, even just an integration with CRM, because
mm,
salespeople, it's not their favorite activity to go update CRM after a call. So if there's an integration where an agent is able to listen in on that call, transcribe it, and then input the relevant information into the CRM and update it, that would really help the sales folks be a lot more efficient and save them from one of their most frustrating tasks.
I bet. So, any advice for getting started? This is not a small undertaking for the CIO or IT team to implement. How do you make it easy to get started? And I guess you probably have a playbook, so it doesn't take, many, many months to kind of deploy into a legacy environment.
Yeah, well, we're very fortunate to have an experienced and broad services team, and
Mm,
so that's all that they do. And I mean, our services organization, I believe, is over 300 people, and
wow.
that's what they do all day, every day. And so they can help people to do everything from migrate their data from a legacy archive or redundant legacy archives and consolidate that down to implementing and onboarding new users into these technologies, and can even do some custom development if they have perhaps a capture channel that is not one of the 100 that we serve today. We have a team that can work to capture those channels in the future and do some custom development for them as well. So they're in good hands.
That's great. So last year we saw a lot about fines from the FTC in the order of billions of dollars. It's pretty shocking against, a number of financial institutions, all very public. Do you see that continuing, or where are we on the regulatory landscape? Is it, steady, getting more challenging, or are we going to see some easing up? What are you seeing in the field?
What we're seeing and hearing from customers is that they're staying the course. And so there's certainly a lot of change happening in the government and with the regulators, but they're staying the course and acting as if that is not going to let up and not going to change. Because
Mm,
even aside from the fines, it's just good business. There's still the regulatory risk that's out there, and then there's also still the opportunity now that I'm hearing from a lot of customers that they're seeing and using this data for other purposes internally. And so I'm not seeing any dramatic changes right now in the market.
yeah, that's scary, scary numbers. So. It's worth taking consideration of that. So we getting through the busy event season, a lot of travel. What are you looking forward to next over the spring, summer months? What's on your radar in the team?
Well, we have a big launch coming out at the end of May, and so that's what my team's working on, and that's always exciting, especially to get it out there before the summer time. And then I'm really excited on the roadmap for AI and just building upon
Mm,
AI assistant and intelligent agent, and I think that's just the first step in the beginning. And there's a lot of excitement and ideas around the potentials, and so putting those through the development pipeline and seeing which ones have real good business value and which ones maybe not as much, and um, getting those to market as soon as we can.
fantastic. Well, good luck and congratulations on all the success. You guys are really killing it in the marketplace and adding a lot of value. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks a lot, Evan. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. Take care.